All the best.
Ta-ra.
Your star.
Join us on this week's wrap as we discuss all of the Welsh team's performance in week 1 of the URC, the ups, the downs, the maybes, the missed opportunities, and then stick with us as we preview week 2 of the URC, another almighty week in the best league. Let's get on with it. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the WRRAP Podcast with me, Lee G. Joining me as per normal is James and Jamie. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Evening.
And we have upgraded Harley this week for an original. So before I say hello to Dan, I just want to take everybody back to WRRAP episode 1, where I think it was me, Carwyn, and you, Dan. And I think that was it. And it was a complete shambles, but we got through it and we got to the end and everyone kind of went, oh my God, we're going to do this again next week. So evening, Dan, how are you?
Yeah, very well, thanks. I'm kind of like the guy on Top Gear before James May that no one remembers from Series 1.
It seems...
But I was there at the very start.
You definitely were, mate. You definitely were. It seems such a long time ago now, but it was... 2 years, 3 years, something like that. Yeah, crazy stuff.
Season 3 now, so it would have been post-COVID, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I think my other half was pregnant with our second, so it would have been just 2021.
Yeah, that rings a bell. Blimey, that makes me feel old already, boss. Right, let's kick off with Drink of the Week. And Dan, as you are an original, you can start Drink of the Week this week then. What have you got for us, my friend?
Well, I'm inside 2 weeks away from the Cardiff Half Marathon, so I'm off the alcohol fully at the moment. But I've gone to Aldi and I've raided the 0% section for an Aldi special of Saint Etienne, but with the Saint's got an E at the end, so I don't know how you pronounce that. It's like they've gone full Aldi and just taken a French name and made it their own as well. So, but it's a very nice premium lager beer, 0%, brewed for a premium flavour, which, you know, on an Aldi level is quite good, to be fair.
Well, we'll follow that up with James then, because James, you're in a similar position because you haven't had any proper beer for a while, have you?
No, I have not. On the Aldi stuff they used to do when I was first turned 18, and you go through that phase of drinking like Strongbow dark fruits and stuff like that because it's sweet. Aldi do a fantastic knockoff version for that, and it is honestly about £3.50 for 4 cans. So I fully recommend Aldi. Beer. But speaking of own supermarket drinks, I've got the lemon and lime zero again. Tesco owns Zesty Fizz. I tell you what I have seen for the first time though is, you know, at rugby grounds now they've got the self-pour beer things, and they have some at my employers who shall not be named, and they have Grolsch as self-pour beer, which if you had that in the village that I grew up in, the crime rate would be in the high 90s because that stuff is strong. But yeah, off the booze. I'm off the booze as well, not for a half marathon, simply because I just can't be asked to drink.
Well, I'm going to make a theme of it before I come to you, Jim, because I'm off beer for a completely different reason as well. So this week I've got some Dunbar Zero, which comes with the usual bollocks that the normal stuff gets. It doesn't. It just says how amazing Dunbar is. Apparently this is balanced and moreish, but I've got to be honest, I struggle with non-alcohol beer. It doesn't sit well with me. It looks normal. It looks all right. The stuff I had last week was quite good. The drop beer beer, that was quite nice. I actually finished a can of that. I cannot see me finishing a can of this tonight. So if anyone's got any recommendations of non-alcohol beer, by all means message us on socials, because the shelves are not as well stocked as the rest of it.
Do Dunbar sponsor all the Welsh teams?
They don't sponsor Dragons anymore because we got a different brewery sponsoring us now.
Okay, they've sponsored us for a while.
Yeah.
I don't think they've ever sponsored us.
They yours would be like a champagne company.
Jamie, save us from this low alcohol, non-alcohol rubbish. Save us. What have you got for drink of the week, mate?
Well, yes, I'm very much on the booze, unlike the rest of you, and I've gone very Welsh this evening. I have got from Thomas Watkin, Dragon's Keep IPA. Seems very appropriate after the weekend, doesn't it? So this is the wanky bollocks that's got on the side of the bottle. A bold and spirited brew that embodies the fighting spirit of the Cymry. Unleash the dragon and discover a new Welsh legend. Brewed to commemorate the Dragon's famous comeback win over the Ospreys. Fair play, that's nice, isn't it? That's quite a nice touch. Yeah, I quite like that. So yeah, that's what I got. Thomas Watkin, Dragon's Keep IPA. And very nice it is too.
Everything tastes a bit sweeter this week, though, doesn't it? It's
That was Lee. What was the beer you had last week? Was it you had last week? The one that was brewed in
Swansea.
Swansea.
Yeah. Dropped Bear Beer, I think it's called.
They're the ones that took over the brewery from Thomas Watkin.
Yes, you are right. It says brewed by Drop Beer Beer Company, Unit 3, Century Park in Swansea. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to work right next to it at the garden centre. Shout out to anyone who knows that other garden centres are available. I used to walk around there. Because we used to stock a load of Thomas Watkin.
It's nice. Yeah, that's very nice.
Cool. Right, let's move on to rugby stuff, gents, because quite surprisingly for Welsh rugby, we haven't had anything worthy of news desk yet. Now we're 2 weeks into the season, and nothing newsworthy as yet. And quite honestly, the WRU need to get this shit together and give us something to talk about. They need to...
There is one piece of news today. Alex Callender won the Welsh Rugby Writers Association Women's Player of the Year. Very deserved.
That's very good news.
Yes, we'll come on to women's rugby in the middle bit. I have got that in there, but you just go with whatever you want to go with and just ignore the stuff we spoke about before.
But it's the only piece of news, unless you want to talk. I'm looking on the news now. The only other thing is apparently Joe Calzaghe was the one who inspired Dragons Cup final win.
But they have had him in camp, haven't they? So yeah.
That's it. It's the only piece of news.
Okay, let's start with a quick review of the games last Friday then. So last weekend, starting with last Friday and Cardiff. So Dan, give us your opinion on the game last Friday, mate.
Yeah, it wasn't a classic. I think it's fair to say. Come on a week where
the statement there, Dan.
on a week where it's not going to be a glowing Cardiff review. I think a very weird atmosphere leaving the Arms Park on Friday night, where we've bonus point beaten somebody, and it was probably the worst that everyone felt leaving the Arms Park for about 18 months, which is weird after last season when we hardly won a game. But yeah, it was. I think there's sort of two ways of looking at it. I think in terms of the game itself. Overall unconvincing from Cardiff. First half 17-3 up against Zebra. That was, the first 40 was getting the job done. 3 tries. I think we had 422 entries and 3 scores from that. Zebra huffed and puffed a bit, but didn't get anywhere. Didn't look like scoring, and that was all you could ask for really from the first 40. And then it started to go downhill a little bit at the start of the second half. We let them in quite early in the second half to attack in our red zone. Saw that out, scored the 4th try, that's sort of, I think everybody breathed a sigh of relief at that point, including, it seems, all of the players and all of the coaches, who the only way I can describe what happened in the last sort of 25 minutes of that game is that Cardiff attempted to park the bus and just sort of completely failed at doing so. I think the big frustration was the kicking game, and to the point where I watched the game back and I wrote down our kicking stats, because it was that poor, particularly around our box kicking. We box kicked 15 times to compete during the game, and I've given us 3 recoveries from that of getting the ball back. But that's being very polite, where 2 of those Zebra just dropped the ball into touch, and one of them, Ewan Stevens, does get it and then gets immediately turned over on the floor. So we basically, Cardiff's tactic going into it was obviously to kick a lot in the middle third of the pitch, try and win the ball back, and then play with field position in Zebra half, but we didn't actually recover the ball in play once from that tactic. And so once that went out the window, the plan B was just to keep doing plan A. It felt like there was no alternate option. They changed the halfbacks about 65 minutes. Joe and Mulder and Tinas Tabia come on, who were felt as our more attacking options. And then they both just carried on kicking, and Mulder had a particularly tough time of just whacking 2 out on the full for no obvious reason. So I think in terms of the performance itself, it was just, there's a lot of room for improvement there. But I think contextually, this is a side that lost a lot of games in that scenario last season. Round 1 last season, we had an Italian side at home, Benetton, we're cruising, and we somehow throw it away and lose in the last minute. So there's going to be an element of nervousness, I think, about the players. They've got to learn how to win in those situations, and they did cling on. Zebra were different from how I think we thought they were going to be. Classically, you think of Zebra as a quite expansive, throw the ball around, play quite high tempo rugby, but mixing a lot of errors with that. Obviously, they've had a big turnover over the summer, and they went quite direct. Rarely got outside the 12 channel. I think Cardiff ended up making 246 tackles, which you don't usually have to make that many against Zebra, because they do just keep the ball alive and keep going. But with our non-existent kick aerial game, we conceded 59% possession and 67% territory to them. So where they were quite direct, we struggled to deal with that. And then I just think the coaches have to take an element of blame for not getting messages on to change that, and not, just in that period, about 60, 65 minutes, where we've done a lot of defending and a lot of guys are out on their feet and they're struggling to kick chase, send Tabia and Mulder on and just say, listen, lads, just keep the ball in the middle of the pitch for a couple of minutes, go through 5-10 phases, bring the tempo back under control, and then we'll play again from there. We never got that final 20 under control, and ultimately a better side than Zebra would have beaten Cardiff on Friday. I think probably 90% of the league beat Cardiff there in that situation. So that's the concern. But 5 points and get rid of that one. It's a win that we didn't have last season. We drew out in Zebra, so we're sort of aggregate 1 up on the season. And fingers crossed for better next week, I think.
I mean, when we discussed it last week, it was almost there's a no-win kind of scenario, isn't it? Because no matter what you do, you should have done better. And if Zebra actually turn up and do some stuff, which, to be fair to them, in that second half, I thought they did. They made a couple of decent breaks, and if they were able to finish a couple of them a bit better, then maybe they may well have given you a bit more of a shock than what they actually did. But going into that last 10 minutes, as a fan that stood there for most of last season and watched the last 10 minutes drift away and turn from a win into a loss, what was the feeling like on the terrace and around the pitch? How bad was it?
Yeah, I mean, there was a point where they had the ball about 76 minutes, and I was sort of just doing in my head maths of, well, if we can stop them scoring until the 78th minute, then they might not get the ball back in time to score again. And that's not really where you want to be against Zebra at home, trying to figure out just how they can avoid winning it rather than we can go and win it. So yeah, it was tense in there, and it was quite a good attendance. 6,200 or so for a Friday night against Zebra is higher than what we would usually expect for a game against the Italians. And the atmosphere before was quite buoyant and at half time, but yeah, it got very tense, and it was certainly relief rather than joy at that 80-minute mark, which it's still an upgrade on last season, where it was sort of it was a lot of what if. I'd rather be relief for a narrow win than a what if for the narrow loss. But I think there's definitely a hope that we don't have to keep going through that every week, and that we will get better and we'll start putting away games a little bit more easily, hopefully.
Jamie, what did you think of the game?
Well, I mean, there were many good games in round 1 of the URC, wasn't there? This was not one of them, I think it's fair to say. I thought Zebra were terrible in our first half. They were absolutely awful. They had no ideas in attack. The set piece was a disaster. The line out in particular was a shambles. Keystone Cops defending. Cardiff were cruising without really working hard for it. And I did think at half time, this could be a walkover, and I was seriously considering switching this game off and watching Edinburgh Leinster instead, But in the second half, I do think it was slightly concerning the way Cardiff switched off. I mean, as Dan alludes to, if they do that against a Benetton, a Connacht, a Lions, any team like that, then
Even
they're
the
in big trouble.
Scarlets.
Even the
They switch off
Scarlets,
again.
yeah.
Even the Scarlets. Even the
Well,
Scarlets.
if they switch off against a better team, Cardiff are in a lot of trouble. And I was a little bit surprised at the way they just seemed to completely switch off, but they never really looked like in danger of losing that game, I don't think. And you are right, Lacey, but did create a lot of chances in that second half, didn't they? Once they started throwing caution to the wind. But I mean, their skill set is so poor. I mean, I lost count of the amount of times they were dropping the ball and spilling it. And it would have been a really interesting game if had those chances stuck, and they pushed Cardiff a little bit. But in some ways, I think both teams will be happy at the end of it. Cardiff have got a bonus point win without particularly being stressed around to card for it, and Zebra would be delighted. Away bonus point on the road, considering what an absolute shambles they were for most of that game. So I guess both teams would be happy, but not a classic as we agree. But I'm sure Cardiff will be happy, and they'll move on to the derby now next week. But they'll know they'll have to improve.
Go on then, James. You get to have your 2 pennies worth. Go on. We know how much you like talking about Cardiff.
I mean, first off, you've got the 5, as Dan said, you've got 5 points, job done. Forget about it now. On the other hand, and I said this in the chat at the time, I don't think it was a case of Zebra creating much. I thought Cardiff looked uncomfortable in defence, and I noticed early on they were giving up a lot of meters in contact to Zebra. And again, I'm not saying Rugby Pass are very accurate with their stats, but I'm going off post-contact meters for Zebra with 321 off 172 carries. It just didn't look comfortable. It didn't look like the system was fully embedded yet. And then there's the kick-in situation. And if you listen to Scrum 5 Pod today, they talked about basically the question was put forward: would Cardiff rather kick like that for the season and win, or go down valiant losers like last year? And it is a bit of a awkward, it's not one or the other. And ideally, you want a good mix between both. But I think a lot of fans need to realize you didn't sign Alec Davis to be Thomas Williams. You signed him to do what Alec Davis is good at, and that is box kicking. So, Cardiff will be happy. But good ones get out of the way. And it's the work-ons for the Scarlets game are clear, which I think if anyone who's coached at any level, that's a good thing, is when your work-ons are really clear. So for Cardiff, it's tightening, finding the balance of that kicking game. Are they going to kick that much against Cardiff, or I should say, are they going to box kick that much against Cardiff, or they're going to play around that middle third a bit more? Are they going to diversify kick-off 10 more? So I think having the work-ons that are clear will suit Jockey. Shout out to Ben Cambriani as well on the wing for Zebra, former Osprey Academy. Lad obviously Italian qualified with a name like Cambriani. Had a horrific ACL injury in pre-season for last year for Zebra. So really great to see him succeed in pro rugby.
And
there was a lot of talk, wasn't there? Sorry. About the kick in, there was a lot of talk. Like Ali Davis did come under a bit of criticism. I thought he had a decent game actually.
I thought he kicked fine.
Yeah, I thought Sheedy and Ali Davis had good games. What I did notice though is when Mulder came on for Ali Davis, there was a bit of a drop off there, wasn't there? Now I know it's early days, but Dan, what was your first impression of Mulder? Because it looked to me like a big drop off when he came on.
Yeah, no, I agree that just on the couple of people like tweeting me saying about Ali Davis jury's out and stuff. So it's not his fault. He's just play into instruction there, I'm afraid. And the quality of his kicking was good. Like ultimately the issue was that we kept kicking when we were obviously done for legs wise in the second half and no one had any chase. And in the first half we literally just could not get the ball back. I mean, I don't mind this tactic of flapping the ball back. Trying to sort of play unstructured from there. But I wouldn't mind just seeing somebody like Mason Grady, who's 11'2", just jump up in the air and catch it occasionally every now and again. He doesn't have to flop. the ball back every time. So, but yeah, Mulder, it's disappointing because I watched a bit, never heard of him obviously before we signed him. So I thought, well, go and watch some of Bricker's games in the Currie Cup. Different out there, you know, harder, faster pitches and a different standard of play. But his strengths were playing at tempo, sniping around the fringes a bit. He's quite a physical bloke for a smaller guy to look at. So he made a couple of meters that way. And then we've asked him to come on and just kick the leather off the ball, which, watching Vickers, he very rarely box kick for them. If they were going to kick, they're kicking off 10 and they're just kicking long and trying to pin the other team back. So, yeah, I just felt sorry for him more than anything, really, that he'd been asked to play in a way that wasn't his style at all. And the one time him and Tinas did have a little link up, he sort of took a few steps into the guard defender, found Tinas, little ball over the top. Grady has 2-3 yards to stretch his legs, knock it back inside. Zebra end up kicking it over their own line, and we get a 5 meter scrum. And you just kind of think, well, why don't we do that a bit more? You know, why don't we play in that middle third a bit more? We're like, I'm not just saying this with my tinted glasses on, but I think we are clearly a better side than Zebra here. We've got better players, so why don't we back ourselves and play a bit in this situation? But I think that probably comes back to that nervousness and that experience of winning regularly and getting that under their belts. And just, I think just James made an interesting point about the defensive system as well, that I think a big change where Thomas Young's injured for the start of the season is that Dan Thomas is quite a different style of open side. In that he's made somewhere between 25 and 30 tackles, depending on which stat site you look at on the day. I think if Thomas Young was out there, he'd have probably made 15 to 20 tackles, but attempted double the amount of jackals. Whereas Thomas is not, he's not going to hit every single breakdown, get over the ball. He'll go in, he won 2 or 3 on the floor when it's presented, he'll go for it, but he doesn't provide that regular jackal threat. And I think then, you know, Zebra can build praises and build pressure. They played at slightly higher tempo because we just weren't slowing them down that much. And that's where they get their post-contact meters from then as well. So they just need to figure out whether they ask a couple of the other boys to step up. You know, Belcher's the comfortable jackal option. Both of them can step in there as well, figure out between them as they go exactly what the best option is, especially against a side like the Scarlets, who will probably be a bit bigger than us as well next weekend.
So before we move on from Cardiff, my favourite part of that game was seeing Mason Grady take a really clean front of line ball, which I just thought that makes a lot of sense. When I was playing, we used to have a really skinny winger. He was about 6'4", but he was really skinny and really light, so he's really easy to lift and tall and lanky. And it was brilliant because he'd come into a line and you just throw him up and he'd be miles up in the air and he'd come down with snow on him. And it was really easy. And I think, why don't we do that more often? So, and Mason Grady, I would not be, genuinely, if we put him in at 6, I think he'd have a really decent game at 6. I really do. I do. Didn't he play at 6 for Wales? Didn't he? When we ran out of subs or something, and he ended up playing like 2 scrums on the flank or something. And yeah,
I saw Mason Grady play flanker. It was when Cardiff had down to 14 men at the Brewery Field, and Dan Edwards just chipped over the top where he should have been, and Keelan Giles scored.
That's different. Anyway, that was my favourite. My favourite moment from that game was seeing Mason Grady in the lineup. So we'll come back to the derby in a minute chronologically, and we're just going to touch on Scarlets to bridge the gap between a bonus point win and a really tight game. So yeah, I mean, there was a point on 35 minutes in that game where it didn't look like it was going to work. Fafita had a try disallowed. Nothing was really cricket. It was competitive. It was tense. It was tight. You know, Benetton made the most of a couple of defensive errors and absolutely nailed it. And you just kind of like, okay, it kind of felt a little bit down. And in the second half, a decent try from a move that we've run 3 or 4 times, and it has worked consistently for us. And then you hit the second half, and it did seem like we'd actually turned up for a change, and it was nice, you know. The scrum worked. defence look organised. We were defending around tight, and that was always our issue last year, was that get up off the floor and defend, and boys were doing that. That it was a fairly hot night out there, and the boys really put the effort in. There wasn't really much to sing and shout about in attack, but what we did well. Yeah, we could have lost it on that last kick. If we'd have converted that last kick, it would have been harsh. But yeah, to come away from Benetton with a draw is really good. I felt it was, we played for the full 80, which we didn't do last year, and it just felt good. It's you can't really pick out an outstanding player from that game. I think just everybody just did their job really well. There was nobody really outstanding. Everyone made a couple of mistakes. Everyone had a decent little bit of rectifying their mistakes. So yeah, and I'm not going to name the player because that player knows who they are.
I will.
Don't.
I have no issue doing that.
But fucking charging a penalty that he missed and then retakes and slots, and then we draw the game, and you're just like, oh, come on. And I was on the Scarlets group when he did it, and we were all like, that's going to come back and haunt us. It's just one of those stupid things that, he's probably got no idea why he decided to do that. It's just one of those stupid things that you go, oh, all right, being a prop as well. That's quite, that's what happens with props. So, yeah. But other than that, there was a lot of stuff that we needed to work on last year. And to be honest, yeah, it's I haven't seen a single Dwayne Peel out tweet this week, this weekend. That is a good, yeah.
It's early days yet.
I've been
Give
on
it
Twitter,
time.
mate, so don't give me a minute and I'll get some out.
But no, it was, I haven't really seen anything from anybody that's saying, that was a dreadful performance. But keeping a lid on it, we've started seasons in the past with a draw. We started with a draw against the Ospreys a couple of seasons ago, and it all went downhill from there. But this kind of felt a bit better. It's felt a bit more solid. So yeah, I got no complaints from that game. I thought it was enjoyable. My only complaint was I tried to watch it on Premier Player, and Premier Player was crap. So yeah, bastards. It was really, really glitchy. So I switched onto BBC, onto the iPlayer.
Yeah.
So let's get your opinion on this, James. Let's get this one out the way. How shit with the Scarlets, James?
All bow down to our new Welsh rugby overlord. They're back. The Hollywood boys are back. They did nothing wrong.
Hollywood boys.
There's no need to go all Wales online, honestly. Just
Well,
Max Page for Wales.
Max Page for Wales. It's been in other podcasts. They've tipped him for Wales, and look, more power to them.
What I will say on that, yeah,
Max Douglas is the new Johnny Eels. You've got who else was there? Marnus van der Merwe, greatest hooker since Keith Wood. Go on. I'll give you. Keep going. You talk about Max Page a second.
No, what I was going to say with Max Page is, yeah, one decent run, but he made mistakes as well. He's a young kid. He's 20, 21 or whatever. All this bollocks about let's get him in he's the savior and all this kind of stuff. He's still behind Joe Roberts. Yeah, in terms of play, he's a strong runner, but there's a lot of other parts to his game that he needs to work on. We played to his strengths on Saturday, and that worked well for him, but he was also exposed in defence. So let the kid develop. I don't think he's going to develop anymore at Llandovery, in all honesty. In the SRC, I think he is. If he's going to develop, he needs to be at SRC level. But keep a lid on it where he is developing. And there's a lot of potential there, but there's also a lot of creases that need to be ironed out before we look at him and go, okay, he's not our number 113. He's on the pitch because we've got 2 13s that are injured. And that's the reality. So as a half decent game that he had, he's still got a lot of stuff to work on, but it's a big confidence boost for him to come in and deliver that game on Saturday. So that's my piece done. Go on, carry on.
No, Scarlett's made a game of it. Scrum and line-up worked well. You know, both 100% completions. Can't ask for much more. They clearly goal line defense is something they worked on a lot. Something that me and you talked about a lot last year. Still think they look soft around the ruck. But in especially in that middle, you know, pick and go, things like that. But ultimately, you went to Benetton, came back with 2 points. Like, there's nothing what I can say how shit Scarlets were or how it was Benetton's second team that is going to change that. You still came away with 2 points.
Mm.
You know, and in the context of where Scarlets were last year, that you take that, and you know, rightly or wrongly, majority of people, apart from you know, Big M and other Scarlets diehards, predicted a Benetton win because you know, as I said, what indication of Scarlet's given that this season's going to be any different? You know, they talk the talk, but now they have backed it up with somewhat of a good performance. You know, as much as I dislike Scarlets, I'm not going to sit here and say, you know, they bullshitted their way to a draw. You know, and they arguably had chances to win the game. You know, so.
But you know, you
Benetton.
You know, you've got your saying of we'll find a way. Well, yeah. Our saying this year is going to be just believe. Yeah, and that's sometimes you just got to believe, James. And
fucking please win. Please, for the love of God, win.
Yeah.
No, I think that it is really hard to form narratives after one game. And as we've said, look at the fixture list. Scarlets and Cardiff have got the 2 best home blocks to create this narrative after 6 games. Because you've got the most home games in this block. So come Saturday now, when you've got, you know, the Checkbook Charlie's coming to town, you've now got to put that, you've now got to back that up, essentially. I think Via Fafita is going to be a big loss. He did not look in good shape coming off that pitch. Not sure about Tame Plumtree. He didn't look great either. So, but, you know,
well, we're meant to have Lousy
fair play
back,
to them.
So, yeah. Jamie?
Meant to have Lousy. I know Josh McLean's training.
Just quickly, I only saw the last 20 minutes, obviously, because I was out on Saturday. Came in, watched the last 20 minutes. Scarlets were all over them when I watched them. They were all over Benetton. Very gritty effort. Fair play to him. Benetton, as we talked about before, very tough place to go. Okay, it might not have been Benetton's full strength team, but that doesn't matter. And I can understand why a lot of Scarlets fans are very happy, you know, the way some were talking about it like it was a victory. But no, credit to them. I think what we saw last season and then what we saw on Saturday, you could see there's been some work done over pre-season. You can see they're fighting hard for each other. There just seems to be a bit of a culture shift. It's only early days, I know, but already I got a feeling Scarlets are going to be a lot better this season. And I think it's a very positive result. I was a Scarlets fan, I'd be very happy. 2 points at Benetton, that is not to be sniffed at.
So, Dan, did you have a chance to watch the game and did you think, yay, great, well done, Scarlets, or did you think, crap, we've got to play them next week? How did it sit with you?
No, I enjoy it, and you know, I thought I didn't know what to expect from the Scarlets this season, to be totally honest. It was a bit of a mess last season at times, and the recruitment individually, they've been good players, but I don't think there's been an obvious sort of aim of recruitment necessarily to say, okay, they're recruiting players to say play X way or to sort of improve X area. But it was a mindset shift really from the Scarlets, and that I think we've seen Benetton put a lot of pressure on in that first half, and we'd seen the Scarlets fall away quite quickly in some of those games last season, and they just clung in, really. You know, Benetton weren't great, made quite a lot of errors, conceded quite a lot of turnovers, but Scarlets were there to force the errors and to take advantage of turnovers, but they looked quite good on transition. I thought Johan Lloyd had one of his better games in a Scarlets jersey, and maybe there's something to be said of not telling him he's fly half and then chucking him in late or whatever happened to Sam Costello, how late that was. But yeah, I'm quite a big fan of Lloyd, and I think he looks a lot better when he doesn't overthink things so much, when he doesn't have the pressure of being the main man at 10. I thought Gareth Davis helped quite a lot with that as well. He looked in pretty good form at 9, a couple of nice snipes, and managed the tempo quite nicely. And then a couple of the new guys made good impressions. Max Douglas got through a serious amount of work in the pack. Jared Taylor is, I can't remember how new he is. He's been injured a bit and stuff, isn't he? But he was gritty as well. And then a couple of those lads in the back three look pretty good as well. Ellis Mee looks quite handy in the air. Blemery looks quite electric on the left wing. And then I do think Tom Rogers is much better at fullback than he is on the wing as well. I think that's where his ceiling increases more. I think he's a relatively limited winger, but he is a much better fullback than perhaps he's been given credit for. And the other player who was existing but has looked a lot better on Saturday, I thought, was Kemsley Mathias, who has been criticised at times, and he's had to be fast tracked into the Wales setup at times as well, because, well, a bit because of injury and a bit because of Gatland's refusal to pick other people who might be around. And so he's looked a little bit out of his depth, but he justified some of the hype around him from some quarters. So no, I looked at the Scarlets and thought they'll be tricky to break down next weekend, but at the same time, I don't think there was anything that like fully scared me. I think I know if Cardiff can pick up the level, it'll be a good game. Cardiff Scarlets games are always quite a good game. But yeah, it's one which could go either way, certainly. But great result for Scarlets against, well, I think it was Richard Hodges, formerly of our parish, who's now in Italy, who said Benetton were targeting top 4 this season. So to go out there and take 2 points off them is pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's move on to the big game, the finale, the crescendo of Welsh rugby for last weekend. So Dragons were at home, Jamie. So let's let James go first, and then you can polish it off after and correct him for all his mistakes. James, all yours, mate.
Yeah, tough one to swallow. Obviously, you never like losing, and there's a lot come out of the game, and yeah, I have no. I said at the time I have no complaints. Like and it's quite nice to come out of a loss actually, and not have anyone to blame but yourself. There's no referee indecision. There's no, oh, he missed that forward pass, or he missed that knock on, or things like that. It's really nice to come out of a game and not say there was contentious refereeing. I thought Ben Breakspear was really good. Do I agree with every decision? No, but that's down to interpretation of laws. Did the Ospreys throw it away, or did come back in? That's the question, essentially. Can it be both? Probably. For 70 minutes, I was quite happy. We looked comfortable. I thought defensively we didn't give Dragons much at all. I thought their try was really well worked and it exploited. It's basically essentially what we do as a team is offload. We're one of the highest forward passing teams in the URC. So yeah, and then in attack we did vary up a bit. I like Jack Welsh was very, very good at 15. He caused Joe Westwood a lot of problems. And like Succombia went well. There's great individual performances I can pick out from that game. I thought, and I'm sure Jamie's going to come on to it, but I thought Dewi Lake was fine. I thought Adam Beard, having only come off 2 training sessions, looked good. Was busy, made 12 tackles. Still unconvinced about the balance of the back row, but it's a really tough thing you have a back row, the quality in the back row that you have is getting them on the field. But does it work? That's another thing I'll talk about on my pod. But ultimately, no one remembers the 70 minutes that come before. They're only going to remember the 10 minutes that the Dragons came back in. And they did. And we've got to accept that our discipline for that 10 minutes was poor. I thought defensively we did nothing wrong. You know, we just couldn't stop the Dragons doing what we do. You know, and that's hammering teams, being efficient around the ruck area, and then going over. So if you want me to come and rant and rave and saying it was a fix and something like that, end of the day is we let them back in the last 10 minutes. It was really tough on Matt Scott, who's making his pro debut at tight head, and it's probably one of the worst scrummaging props to come up against in Rhodri Jones. I said this on our Secret Ospreys group chat, that is the worst. I think one of the worst props you can come up against is Rhodri Jones, because he's a fantastic technical scrummager. But that's where we are. We only had 2 fit available tight heads, and one of them was a floppy head boy from Crummock. So, and the bench didn't make the impact that it needed to compared to the Dragons. It is what it is. We've got to take the learnings, and there are clear work-ons, and go into the Stormers game. Full kudos, full hats off to the Dragons. They fully deserved the win for how they performed in that last 10 minutes.
So, Jamie, was it a last 10 minutes win, or was it 80 minutes of hard work, grind and pressure?
No, this game was very much won in the last 10 minutes. And look, I'm still in shock myself as to how we actually won that game. I looked at the team sheets before when they came out on Friday, and you look at the Ospreys team, and it was just loaded with quality. And then you look at ours, and then you see all the injuries we had. We had 13 players unavailable. We don't have the likes of our Hip, Steve Cummins, Elliot D, Kai Evans, Funaki, Griffiths, Tane Basham, and Wainwright. There's a lot of key guys there out injured. And I thought to myself, well, there's no excuses now for the Ospreys not to win this. This was a perfect opportunity for them to end that Ronnie Predudu and get off to a really good start. And let's be honest, for the majority of that game, they were in control. They were the better team. I have no issue saying that. They were better than us. But in those last 10 minutes, something happened. Something happened that we don't normally see from the Dragons. We saw fight. We saw grit. We saw determination. And as James said there, the bench for me was absolutely key. When Ospreys made changes, they made no impact. Their bench made 0 impact. When ours came on, we made a big impact, none more so than Harry Wilson. Now, you watch those last 5 minutes of the game, Harry Wilson is constantly getting over the game line, making a lot of hard yards, and I'm really excited to see him now in regular action, because at the Dragons, we've always had good, skillful centres, but this guy is big. Trust me, he is big, and he gets you over the game line. We've never had a big physical boss in a centre, and we've got one now. And that was key. It was just those last 10 minutes. And it was a very un-Dragons-like win, wasn't it? Because you look at it, it was 4 minutes left in the game. We were down to 14 men. James Benjamin got sent off. We're trailing 13-21. Now, in any other circumstances, that's a win. You would never expect Dragons to come back from that. But we almost did a Munster. I thought it was a very Munster-type win. To snatch it right at the end, when you're constantly going through the phases, and we didn't do anything stupid. We were constantly getting over that game line, putting Ospreys on the back foot. And I thought we showed a lot of patience, game intelligence as well, which is something we don't normally associate for Dragons. When they had that penalty, it would have been very tempting to kick to the corner and go for that try. But instead, Lloyd Evans took the 3 points. That was smart. That was the right decision. And look, we did get out of jail on several occasions. So we win the scrum penalty, and Angus O'Brien kicks it. He tries to get distance on it. He doesn't make touch. It goes to Jack Walsh, who had a very good game, and I understand why he got man of the match. Looking back, I thought he was very, very good. But that clearance kick wasn't great, and that still gave Dragons good territory to attack from. And that was one of his, very few faults that Jack Walsh did. But that clearance kick was key at the end.
Our kicking out of hand to touch that day was atrocious. I think our kicking out of hand back and forth was generally fine, but our kicking to touch was awful. That on Saturday.
But that was a key moment, I thought. And it hasn't been talked about a lot. That clearance kicks that still gave us good territory, and then from there, I did not expect us to get over the line. I thought we'd do something daft, like we'd spill the ball, get turned over, and we snatched it at the end. And it's great because how many times does that happen to the Dragons? You know, we've been on the end of those results loads of times, especially against Cardiff. You know, as Dan probably knows, we have had so many close games with Cardiff where we probably have been a better side for most of that game, but then we've ended up losing by a couple of points, or we've done something daft in the last 5 minutes. Sometimes it just doesn't go your way, and the best team doesn't always win. But I was very pleased with that performance. Already, I know it's early days. I don't want to get too carried away, right? Because it's only round one. I'd say already we look a fitter side. I'd say we look a bigger side. We look a stronger side. It wasn't perfect by any means. I'm still not happy with our attack. I know we scored a very good team try, but it's still too unstructured. Far too many looping passes. Still lacking an identity, but I think our defence is improved. You could see that. Mentioned Joe Westwood earlier. Yeah, he did miss a tackle on Jack Walsh, which led to Combia's try, I think it was. But he did turn over Kieran Williams on the line.
Yeah,
and now
it's not me picking out. It's not me. No,
I know that, mate. I know. Yeah, yeah.
Jack Walsh clearly they clearly identified Walsh could attack Westwood's channel, so he
absolutely
did over and over. And absolutely, Joe Westwood made a fantastic.
That was another key moment. Because that was a massive try saver. Because that looked like for all the world that Kieran Williams was going over the line, and Joe Westwood held him up. It was fantastic, and that's what. Sorry, I was going to say that's what Dragon supporters want to see. You know, they want to see us stay in the fight and work hard and just keep at it, because I don't think we've done enough over the years. We haven't worked as hard and we haven't stayed in the fight. We've rolled over, and like I said, in that situation, 4 minutes down, when you're down to 14 men and you're like 2 scores down, very often we just see the Dragons sort of drop their heads, and they didn't, and that's what really pleased me about that performance.
I think the key is, like I said earlier, you can't push narratives from game week 1.
No,
it's really impossible. You got to judge, and actually, Dragons are in a bit of a catch-22 situation now, because you want to continue that momentum from a great win, but then you look at your next game, and that's not to say you won't carry the performance necessarily, but you got to wait now until October. Until who have you got next at home? Is it Benetton?
So we'll talk about the Leinster game in a bit, and why I think actually it is a good time to play them now. We'll talk about it later. But yeah, we've got Sharks, Lions, and Benetton. Three games that are winnable, in my opinion. They're tough on paper, I agree, but they're not going to be full strength. Sharks,
No.
Lions,
But what I'm saying is
that's an opportunity.
Really, for that narrative now to stay where Dragons are giving people bloody noses and smash and grab wins, you've got to do that against the Sharks now. To really start forcing that narrative, and the Ospreys have got to get, again, the Ospreys now lost 4 points or 3 points, right, in a block that realistically this is the only point we might end up with, because now we've got Stormers at home, which it will be a second team Stormers, but they are still the Stormers. You've then got the Bulls at home. You've then got Munster away, Bulls at home, and then Ulster away. Realistically, how many points are Ospreys getting out of that block?
It's tough, isn't it?
That was the game we had to either come away with.
No, I agree. I just want to give a couple of shout outs before we go any further for player performances. I thought Harry Keddy was absolutely outstanding. I thought he was excellent. He was everywhere in the back row. His tackling, his carrying. I thought he was brilliant. Great to see him back. I thought Shane Lewis was putting a really good shift at 8. I know it's not a natural position for him and he wants to be playing 6, but I thought he did a really good job at 8. Angus O'Brien, who I'm convinced Philippa Tuttiett would have given the player of the match to, because she did name check him a lot. And maybe if Dragons were winning in those last 10 minutes, maybe she would have given it to him.
It was a real toss
Jack Walsh.
Yeah,
I have no problem. I thought Jack Walsh was great. Aneurin Owen. So me and Squidge Rugby in the pub, right, we had a really good chat about Aneurin Owen. So my hot take is, if he had plays for any of the other regions, he would have had Wales caps by now.
Not if he plays for Ospreys, mate.
Well, even Robbie said that Robbie loves Aneurin Owen and he wants him to sign for the Ospreys. But he agreed with me. He said definitely he would be having Wales caps now if he played for the other three, but because he's playing for the Dragons and results go against him, that he's not getting the opportunity. Because, and now, it could be what Wales needs. If you look for creativity of football in centre, I mean, we're all talking about Joe Hawkins at Exeter. Well, he hasn't exactly set the world alight, has he? And we've got that player in Wales. And also his defence, by the way, is excellent. That's something that people don't talk about with Nairo. His defence is really, really good. And he's a class actor now, we just need him to stay fit. And Leon Brown as well. Really good to see him back on the pitch. He's a unit. He's bulked up.
Steady,
he was, but that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. He's, for Leon, that's good. He's working
Again.
hard on his scrummaging, and he will be in our Wales set. I guarantee you, when he stays fit, Dragons are managing him carefully. I don't expect to see him in Dublin on Friday. I think that's the way to go. They got to be careful how they manage him. It was great to see Leon back. But the other thing I'll just say as well, slightly disappointing attendance for that game. So it was just over 5,000. Lots of Ospreys fans there, though. Fair play. It's really good to see them make the journey all the way from Blaenau Gwent. So good on them for getting down to support their region.
Great inside joke for Dragon's Lair there.
Yeah, it absolutely is. The atmosphere was great. It was only 5,000 people there, but the atmosphere, and I haven't heard a roar like that. When Luke Leander went over, I have not heard a roar like that at Rodney Parade since probably when we beat Munster a couple of years ago. But yeah, slightly disappointing performance, but it was a good day. It was a really good day. And everyone was in shock. Like when I met Robbie afterwards, the first thing he said, like, what the hell just happened? It's like none of us could believe it. It was it was an excellent win, a big win. But now we need to build on it. This can't be just a one-off now. When we go into those home games, we've got to use this experience. That we've got to draw on that and stay in the fight and take it into those really key fixtures, those 3 games in a row. So very happy.
Okay, so just quickly then, because we do like to wrap it on. Dan, just give us your quick kind of overview of, as a neutral with no interest in either side, what did you make a Dragons Ospreys on the weekend, mate?
I really enjoyed it, to be honest, as a game. I think I don't really like derbies in week 1 generally. It did lack a bit of the sort of edge that you usually see from a Welsh derby, maybe a couple of weeks into the season, but it made it quite an interesting tactical battle. Anyway, Dragons tried to take Ospreys set piece away from them quite a lot in the first half, kicked in play, didn't play risk averse rugby, but tried to cut down the errors quite a lot, take away the scrum from them as well, and it had a bit of success in that front. Ospreys scored a nice try, and I think probably from about 50 minutes it starts to properly turn in the Ospreys direction. They run them all up from just inside their own 22 up towards halfway, and I think the referee spoke to the Dragons captain afterwards and picked out about 3 different infringements in the same all, and then that ultimately leads to the yellow card at 65 minutes. And then that last 10 minutes Ospreys managed it really poorly. Two decisions I thought were quite poor from them is that they kick off to the Dragons after the penalty. Dragons knock it on, and immediately, I don't remember which Ospreys player it was, but he tries to go for this inside offload, and you just think, don't offload the ball there, mate. Just keep it in. It's 78 minutes on the clock. Keep it in hands and try and play from there. And then when Walsh takes that ball in his own 22 with about 30 or 40 seconds to go, it's easy to say in hindsight, but I did think it live at the time, is just run back towards your support, take the contact, take 3 phases and whack it into the stand and run away. I don't quite know why he decided to kick there. And like James said, the kick into touch, I wrote that during the game that Dan Edwards has got Jared Evans-itis, where his legs just don't really kick the ball very far.
Dan Edwards, by the way, because
he's just suffered it over the
Cardiff
summer.
Judgment Day. He was whacking them 40, 50 meters.
He's just picked up Jared Evans-itis over the off season. I don't know what's happened there, but Dragons, I thought they were interesting in the way that they defended. I thought if you're talking about man of the match, I'd have probably run up the stand and give it to Philo Tia, to be honest, because in that yellow card period when Ospreys did have a sustained period of possession in the Dragons half, the line speed and the organisation of that defensive line was really very impressive, and it really smothered the Ospreys in that key period. So Dragons, good value for it overall, I think, just in terms of sticking in the game when it was a bit of a closer tactical battle, and then being spot on at the right times towards the end. Lloyd Evans looks like he's going to be a great signing. Roger Williams coming off the bench was really good as well. Shane Lewis Hughes, if he can stay fit, he's got to be in a Wales squad, but it's just about playing regularly for him, I think. I know he wore 8, but he didn't pack it down 8. He packed down on the open side.
He alternated.
Yeah.
We spoke about on the Dragons Lay pod, so he alternated between him and Keddy, which was quite clever, actually.
It worked really well, actually, and it is only week 1, but the Dragons, if you just come down to earth and you've never seen the Dragons play before, you'd have never thought that they had the sort of brittle brittle mentality is a bit harsh, but you're right. You are right. No, the tendency to throw games away in that last 15. You think, oh, this is a team that's quite seasoned winners, actually, and they just cling in there and go about their business. So I think there's more to come from the Dragons as well. Like Jamie said, their attack, they make one off first phase strike ball, they go down the left wing, sort of middle of the second half, bit of space out there for I think it was Rosser, who gets a bit of space, and then they launch the ball back into midfield to Rio Dyer, who's got nobody outside him, and he's in the left hand side of the field as a right winger. Lo and behold, he gets tackled behind the line and they concede the turnover, and you just think, that's just simple. Take a few phases off one or two men outside 9 and build back up again. But yeah, I don't think all is lost for the Ospreys either. They'll be a lot better. Jack Walsh was the best player on the park by quite a distance, and I think attacking wise, they just need to figure out how to get their best players on the ball at the best times. There was some of their play was a little bit telegraphed through midfield, I thought, and the Dragons sort of ate that up a bit.
They did try and vary up a bit. I think there was a nice little move they did, 2 pullbacks, brings Jack Walsh into the line. I think you will see a start of evolution of play, maybe towards the back end of the season when Boise is sort of like basically in the job. I think that the issue with the Ospreys attack is that they don't do what's effective. Oh no, sorry, they do what's effective rather than what's entertaining in that. And there's been a lot of debate about this today, is what, and I say it's what is entertaining rugby? Is it the thing that, is it the beautiful looped passes and stuff that's going behind things like, or is it the thing that's most effective that makes you meters and sets you up to go on and win a game? I do absolutely agree with you that the attack needs to evolve and needs not be as telegraphed, but equally they've got to do what works.
I just like to see the centre. I think it's the Osprey centres that frustrate me is the right word, but I just watch it and think, Watkin and Williams have been together for quite a while now. They've played quite a lot of minutes together, and they're both capable of switching in and out of 12 and 13. And so why don't they? That's just show something a little bit different, because the first try comes. It does come from a horrible defensive read by Lloyd Evans. He'll be disappointed when he watches that back off the thing, but it also comes from the Ospreys just bringing different options off the first phase strike play there. He's got to make a decision, whereas I think too often the Ospreys don't force the defence into making that decision, and if then, like the Dragons did on Saturday, they do make more of their tackles and they don't, and they're quite physical through that contact, it doesn't leave you much space to move. You get quite narrow, you get quite stuck, and then you kind of get bogged down quite quickly, and the Ospreys don't regenerate that pace particularly well. But they will, as I think the Ospreys are a team that once they get a few games under their belt and rediscover that sort of machine-like pack and the way they go about their business at the set piece and the way they assert pressure and win penalties and then play from there, they'll be back and finding a way.
So I'm just gonna kind of round up week 1 with the interesting bit for me is that the players that we're talking about are young players that are coming through. We're talking about Page, Walsh, Edwards, Stevens. We're talking about young players coming through, and that's what we were hoping was going to happen last year. It didn't quite happen last year, and it feels like it's starting to happen this year. It's the next breed are coming through. So yeah, time to believe. That's
fantastic covering tackle by Tipperick. They just galloped across the field. It was like watching a stallion with a hair just poking out the back of the scrum cap.
Okay.
It
It's
was
all
lovely.
about the young breed and Tipperick. Right, let's move on to a couple of other things. So there was another game on Friday, which was Wales women down in Rodney Parade. Wasn't Rodney Parade, wasn't it?
It was Rodney Parade, yeah.
Yeah. So we're not going to go into that game in a lot of detail because we now have a Wales women's podcast separate on its own. We've got presenters, we've got a plan, and all sorts of stuff. So if you want to hear about the Wales women game, go and download that podcast because it is the girls that are doing it, and Harley and Hugh, but the girls that are doing it have been mad keen to put this together for a long time, and yeah, enthusiasm, bursting out of it. So it's a really good listen. So by all means, go and download that as well. It is a good listen. And if you are enjoying what you're hearing, give us a like, a subscribe on YouTube. It'll go down a storm. It really will, because it's nice. I said to the boys I was watching one of my kids was watching a YouTube, and they go, bash the subscribe button, bang the button, come on guys, hammer the button. And I'm like, no, just press the button, just press subscribe. That's all you just give it a little touch. It's a touch sensitive screen. Just give it a little touch. That's all you need to do. So yeah, give us a subscribe. Right, let us move on to the coming week. I mean, we've touched on bits and bobs and all of that, and we start on Friday night. Leinster Dragons, Jamie, away.
Yeah.
Leinster didn't have a particularly good first week, which they've done that in the past, and they've had a stuttering start. You're coming off the back of a massive win. How confident are you going over?
Not very confident at all. However, what I will say, I actually think it's a good time to be playing Leinster in round 2, if I'm being honest, and I'll tell you why. So first of all, it gets a very tricky game out of the way early. Once it's done, it's done. We can put them aside and we can focus on the more important, more winnable games. Secondly, they're not going to have Jodie Barrett, which is good because he's going to cause a lot of teams a lot of problems, and we're not going to have to face him, which is really good. But look, let's be honest about this. Dragons are not going to win in Dublin. And this game is essentially a free hit for them, right? There's no pressure on us whatsoever. Nobody's expecting anything from the Dragons. There are more important and more winnable games coming up. And this might be one of those times where we go there and we might have to take our medicine, and come back and regroup and really focus on those 3 key home games that I talked about with the Sharks, Lions and Benetton, because they are the most important. We have to be realistic, and Dragons have to be pragmatic about the games they can and can't win. So what you will see on Friday is a rotated squad. Dave Flanagan has already said that this week. He's going to rotate the squad, so you won't see Leon Brown. You might see Steve Cummins, Kai Evans and Tane Basham if they're fit. You'll probably see Steph Hughes come back in because he was left out for the first game against the Ospreys. I would like to see Harry Wilson have a start because I've seen flashes of him in pre-season and he looks really good, big unit. So I want to see him being given a go. But look, for this game, I'm not that bothered about it. All I want to see us do is go there and be competitive. If we can go in there, give a good account of ourselves. I would like to say let's try and aim for a try bonus point, but I'm not happy with our attack, as I alluded to earlier. Our attack is really going to have to start clicking at some point. But as long as we go there, give a good account of ourselves, be competitive, show the same sort of fight and grit that we did against Ospreys. Just go out there and have a crack. Why not? Isn't it? It is a free hit. Nobody's expecting us to do anything. So just go out there and just throw caution to the wind. And because we had this talk on the Dragons Day last night, I said, would you rather us go out there and lose 20 points to 16, and it's like, well, no, 20 points to 16? No, you still get a bonus point. Would you rather a narrow win without a bonus point or get absolutely hammered 40, 50 points, but you score 4 tries and come away with a bonus point? Well, for me, I'd rather come back with a bonus point. I'd rather take 40, 50 because at least then you've got something to show for your efforts. You know, you're coming back from Dublin with a point. So but we'll just see how it goes. But like, I'm not expecting anything. This game for me is a write-off. And we got to come back and regroup and focus on those key home games for me. So we'll just see how it goes. But as long as we give a good account of ourselves, make competitive, I think they'll do me, I think.
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem with the league. It's too many of us give Leinster too much respect. I guess Scarlets did it last year. I know Ospreys did it once. Cardiff have probably done it in the past as well. We would just go, oh, you know, the week after we're playing Zebra, we're playing, you know, Edinburgh, whatever. You know, it's a game that we can win, so we won't send a full team against Leinster, and then Leinster end up, you know, strolling half of their home games without really having to work. So, and I know, you know, we're all working on slim squads and all that kind of stuff, but it would be nice to be in a position where.
But don't forget, mind, we're on a 6-day turnaround as well. We got to be sensible and smart about this. And there's no point risking key guys like Leon Brown for this one. It's not really a winnable game. And I'm not saying that to be negative. The Dragons have to be realistic about the teams they can win against, right? And Leinster in Dublin is a write-off. Now, that's not the same, mind. We're going to go out there and roll over and have our bellies tickle and send a bunch of kids out there. I'm not saying that. But we have to be pragmatic and realistic about the teams that we know we can beat. And Dive has made it perfectly clear that Ronnie Parade, he wants to make it a fortress. Those are the games that he's concentrating on. So you will see him rotate the squad, but they're still going to go there and give it a good crack, hopefully. I mean, that's what we want to see, isn't it? Yeah. Nobody's going to predict the Dragons to win. No one's expecting us to win. But what we want to see is Dragons go there and give it a good crack. And if we do come back with a try bonus point, then brilliant. But we'll just have to see. But yeah, expectations are very low, to say the least, for this one. But it's nice to be going there off the back of a win, isn't it? If we lost to Ospreys and then you go after Faye Leinster, then it becomes even more difficult because you're low on confidence to do. But yeah, we'll just see how it goes.
Okay. So your game is on Friday. So Saturday at 7:30, James, your chance to redeem yourself. Stormers never very strong when they come over, particularly their first game. They don't make the airfare. So is this an opportunity?
Any game's an opportunity. Last time we played Stormers, I was at the last game against Stormers actually in Swansea. It was a pissing down rain, 16-all draw. With Paul DeVet kicking everything. Tough one. Obviously, Stormers are going to be without their Springbok contingent. Still a very strong Stormers team. I feel like obviously the thing everyone's going to come back to as well. Ospreys beat Stormers on their own patch last year, and they're only the third team in the URC era to do so, right? Which is completely fair. But I am not in panic stations, or more concerned station about the game. We need to see an improvement. You need to see an 80-minute performance. You need to see what, like Dan said earlier, going back to the machine-like tendencies that we showed last year. I think obviously our kicking game needs to improve. I think we need to tighten up the breakdown. But the Brewery Field factor comes into it.
You don't be playing a Ronnie Parade, mate. That's the one place you don't want to be playing it.
Your attendance would be shocking for one.
Yeah. Oh no, they're all coming from Blaen and Gwent.
Yeah.
So,
more Ospreys in Gwent and Swansea.
The Rodney, I keep saying it.
Inside your head, mate. It's inside your head.
Living rent free.
Field factor is a big one, right? Because it's a very different playing surface. It's a very different atmosphere to the soulless chrome dome that is the Swansea.com, which I do love as a stadium, but is for reasons we've gone into plenty of times, isn't suitable. So how can we catch the Stormers off with that? Basically, we did it with Sale seconds team. Can we do it with Stormers one? Look, forgive me if I'm not too up for it right now. This podcast is pain for me.
Well, Welcome to my world, mate. Most weeks it's pain for me, mind.
Yeah, Jamie's sitting there going like, "Hey, you got nothing. You got nothing. Try doing this 14 weeks.
Welcome to my world for a change.
No, I think I'd expect to see some rotation in the squad. I do. I think that I just think that we need a reaction. It's not panic stations, but there is a reaction needed to put down a marker and say, we're not here to concede that title of best Welsh region. We're not playing into this media narrative that we're not playing for Toby Booth, or we don't know who's the coach now and things like that, because that needs to stop. And we just need to get the W under our belt. Getting the first win. You know, I harken back to last year, and someone made a very good point to me in a message that we got battered out in Connacht last year, but we came away with a bonus point. And then, as you lot all pointed out, the next week we limped past Zebra at home. But then, you go on to have a really strong season. So we need a start. We need to go like that again. I'd rather limp past Stormers but come out with a win. I want a bonus point. I want us to kick well. I just want to see an 80-minute performance. So that's all I want is an 80-minute performance. I don't care if we win 9-3. I want 80 minutes of pure bastardry. That's all I want.
I think you're underselling yourself, mate. I think Stormers didn't play last week because they were in the Curry Cup.
They did. They played a behind closed doors.
Yeah, they had, but not like a. It's not a competitive game.
No.
So you're a week into the season. Anytime you don't win your first game, there is always a bit of a niggle in that second week. We've got to prove something. The brewery field, I think, works in your favour. I think the weather will work in your favour. I genuinely, I'm going to have to punch myself in the face for saying this after, but I genuinely think the Ospreys are good enough to win this one. Genuinely do. And
of course we're good enough. It's whether we'll do it. There's no doubt in our ability at all. It's just I'm skeptical to pour out a win, because when you lose on your first one in the manner that we did, if we'd have lost, right, and it was 35-17, it becomes all right. It was a clear loss. There are lots of work on. When you throw it away in 10 minutes, that's a harder pill to swallow than a big loss.
If you'd have lost 35-17, Jamie would still be on the piss now. Jamie would still be, Newport would still be drinking now. Dan, so before we discuss the main match of the weekend, your thoughts on Dragons and Ospreys for this weekend?
Dragons, Ospreys.
Dragons and Ospreys.
Christ, he thought we were going to go on it again.
You're not allowed to.
We've been through it once already. I can't go through it again, especially not for James. Poor sod.
No, well, all I say is that I've never seen the Stormers win in Wales live, so that's something. And last time I saw Leinster live, and Cardiff beat them as well and reached our Everest, and the DVDs are still available in the club shop if anybody wants them. So, so 2 easy wins for the Dragons and the Ospreys, if you ask me, obviously. But no, I would, yeah, it's the toughest task to go to Leinster. You just got to hope that Dragons sort of get back on the plane and go, well, we gave it as best we could, and anything above losing by about 20 points is a bonus, really, when you're playing out there, I would say. But I back the Ospreys to beat the Stormers. The Bridgend effect, they obviously enjoy playing down there. I think it suits them, that atmosphere and the way that they like to play. There's not a lot really that needs to change for the Ospreys and from the performance on Saturday to beat the Stormers on Friday. And I think just generally about the effect, the narrative around Toby Booth leaving and all that there, people will jump on any little bit about, he's leaving, so it's affecting everybody and the uncertainty and stuff. But just from sort of Cardiff point of view, those couple of years ago when Danny Wilson announced sort of very early in the season that he was leaving, and it sort of inspired an almost last dance effect on the team, and they didn't have to worry too much about what was coming next. They just bunkered down and focused on themselves and went out and gave as good as they got for the rest of that season. And the Ospreys are at a place where culturally they're quite strong already. Obviously, quite a close group, and they know actually what's happening next summer as well. There is continuity in that coaching ticket. So yeah, I think I'd almost say go as far as say I'd be slightly surprised if the Ospreys didn't win on Friday. So yeah, Saturday, sorry. So yeah, best of luck to the Dragons, but thinking the Ospreys will probably come out on top on that one.
Okay, so let's talk about the big one then. I mean, you played really well against us last year and got stuffed twice. So I mean, it's always a belter. There's always controversy. What's your thoughts on travelling down the M4 on Saturday?
Well, for me, I'm literally sat in Stradey Park right now, where it used to be, as that's where I live. So it's a nice stroll across town.
Do you go to bed hating yourself? Because I would.
It's
I'd
like
wake up and cry.
There's an elongated missionary thing going on here, but people see that I'm from Cardiff and bow on the way past. It's incredible.
You've done the opposite, because all Scarlets fans live in Pontcanna. Does that mean all Cardiff fans live
it's
in
like when you play laser tag and they attack your base, and so you just run around the other side and steal theirs when they're not looking. But no, I think it'll shape up to be a pretty good game again on Saturday. To be honest, I think it'll be quite tight. Scarlets and Cardiff generally try and play the same sort of rugby. I think Scarlets generally have a bit more up front. Cardiff usually have a little bit more pace and a bit more X factor behind, and it kind of depends on which one of those comes out on top on the day. But Cardiff will have a few lads back, and Ellis Bevan's back at scrum half, which will be a big boost. I thought he went quite well over the summer for Wales, and I think he probably comes back in as our first choice 9, and then you can drop Aled Davis down to the bench, which is probably where we signed him for that last sort of 15-20 minutes. There'll be another week of training together and getting that cohesion. There was a lot of new boys in that Cardiff squad last week, 8 debutants, so new signings. So it'll build week on week. I think if we can match you up front, then I'd probably back us to come out on it. But I think that's always the big if for Cardiff, isn't it? We have games where our pack does elevate itself and performs sort of greater than the sum of its parts, and then gives us the template to play. But when that doesn't happen, then we do find it difficult to sort of get ourselves ahead and steal wins in that sense. So that's probably where it's won and lost on the day. Our line-out went quite well on Saturday, which hasn't always. The scrum, it's only zebra, but they were quite big actually. I thought surprisingly quite a large pack. So I think they outweighed us certainly. But it went quite well. But yeah, I think Scarlets are probably favourites just for being at home and winning last week, but not massively. It'll be a tight game. It'll be a couple of points either way, I'd have thought.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that. I think what we need to do with the Scarlets is to take the draw as a draw, not treat it as a win. Massive improvement on last year, but that can affect the way you approach the next game. And we have to approach the Cardiff game as give it the respect that it needs. You're top of the table, so let's treat it that way. There were errors there that we made. There were opportunities that we squandered. There were a couple of defensive issues that maybe Benetton should have taken the game away from us. So there's stuff there that we need to improve on. But we need to get back to that mentality that, this is our turf, this is where we belong, and this is where we play our rugby, which is a mentality we've had in the past. I think we went 2 seasons, 2.5 seasons without losing at home or something like that. And that's the mentality that we need to start rebuilding again. So I'm looking forward to it. Really looking forward to it. because I think it'll tell us a lot about the state of Welsh rugby at the minute. I think the weather's going to be poor, but actually I think we're going to try, both sides will still try and move that ball. Both sides won't use the rain as an excuse, and we're going to try and play the game the way we want to play the game. So yeah, I think there's a lot to look forward to. There's a lot of positivity around from all four sides. Yeah, it's nice to have a Welsh pod where actually there's a lot of positivity about Welsh rugby in general.
Bollocks, isn't it?
Well, for three of us, maybe not for one person on the pod.
So, but yeah, maximum return, and I'm talking about maximum now, James. Yeah, is 3 out of the 4 sides could win this weekend. So we're best return this weekend is 75%.
Also very positively about the Dragons. Don't put us down. This is the problem.
Well, we're playing.
We're giving Leinster too much credit. That's literally what you said like 10, 15 minutes ago. But now we're not going to win.
No, I've said only 3 out of the 4 of us can win because we're playing Cardiff. So either Cardiff win or we win. That's what I'm saying, man.
Right. Okay.
Right. Let's do some predictions.
Well, you're saying I don't get to preview Scarlet's Cardiff, or am I not allowed to say the joke I said in the group chat?
Mate, I need to go to bed at some point. Let's.
Where's his 2 best teams, man? Dynasties.
Oh God, he's off again.
Right.
Let's see, Dan Harley did not trust you at all because Harley's filled in his predictions on the sheet, right? So I'm going to tell you Harley's predictions, but you can give me yours as well. Okay, so he's gone for, oh Christ, I can't understand what he's doing here. That's not 50. Fuck it. Tell me, Dan, what's it?
This is going well, isn't it?
Yeah, I should have looked at the predictor before. What's your thoughts on Leinster Dragons?
Do you want an actual score line or just
No, we normally say. We say Leinster
5-5, things like that, yeah.
Well, I don't want to be too harsh on the Dragons, really, but I'm struggling. I don't know. I'm struggling to see Leinster by anything less than 15, really. I'll go Leinster by 20.
Okay, it's Leinster by 20. Osprey Stormers.
Ospreys by 6.
Osprey by 6, nice one. And then Scarlet's Cardiff.
I'll have to back Cardiff, but I don't know. It's a heart and head situation slightly, but Cardiff by 3 with Nicky right at the end.
Cardiff by 3. Okie dokie. Who wants to go next? James, you're next on Harley's. Harley can just listen to it back and do it from there. I can't work out what he's doing on the sheet. Go on, James. Your thoughts on your score prediction on the Dragons and Leinster game?
Oh, Leinster fucking batter them.
He's not bitter at all, is he? He's not bitter at all. It's good to see you taking defeat well, James. I will say.
I've always been a massive Leinster fan.
Of course you have, yeah.
I had them as a team. No, I like Dan. I can't see anything other than a heavy Leinster win. I'll go Leinster by 17.
Okay, Osprey Stormers.
Ospreys by 5.
Osprey by 5. And Scarlet's Cardiff.
Natural disaster. Again, I come back to this analogy all the time. I've never wanted the scene from The Dark Knight Rises to happen more than on the weekend. No, I'll go. I guess this is Sophie's choice, isn't it?
Sophie's choice.
You can go for a draw, mate. You can say it's a 0-0 draw, couldn't you?
I think at home Scarlets will have too much. So I think it'll be Scarlets by like 3.
Okay.
I hate myself, and I'm gonna thrash myself for that. But I do think at home, I think Scarlet's be more spurred on than Cardiff were after the weekend.
Okay. Right. Jamie, Leinster Dragons.
Yeah, I've gone Leinster by 18. Hoping the Dragons will get a try bonus point. So that's why I've gone there.
Okay. Osprey Stormers.
Stormers by 15. No, I'm only joking. Ospreys by 7. I think this is the perfect game for them to get back to winning ways. And will the Stormers really fancy a cold, wet night in Bridgend? I don't think they will.
Fuck, I don't
and they're not
fancy
going to
that.
be full
And that's
strength.
my team.
Nobody fancies it. Nobody fancies it. So I've gone for Ospreys by 7.
Okay. And Scarlet's Cardiff.
Now, this is a tough one. I want both teams to lose. And I know that can't happen.
Really?
So I have to pick a winner. The thing is, Scarlets have got a good record over Cardiff in recent years, and they beat Cardiff twice last season. So I would lean towards Scarlets. However, they have picked up a few injuries now, especially with Faya Fafita. I'm going to lean towards Cardiff on this one because I think there's more to come from them. So I'm going to go a very narrow Cardiff win by 2 points. It'll be a close game, I think. But
Okay.
Cardiff by 2, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start with Scarlet's Cardiff and get it out of the way. So I'm going to go Scarlet's by 5, just because we're at home and it's the boys, and we just. I really hope we kick on. As I said, there's a good run of games coming after this, and we could just forget about last season. We could be sat there in 4 or 5 weeks' time going, let's forget about last season and let's go forward. And if we can beat Cardiff on Saturday, I think it sets us up for a good run. Ospreys Stormers, I'm going to go Ospreys by 8, purely to take out the losing bonus point from the Stormers. Stormers to not get a thing out of that game would be an absolute joy. I would look forward to the United Rugby Rewind on Sunday night with Stormers on NAFL. And then Leinster Dragons. So you're going to hate me for this, Jamie, because I'm going to be positive.
Oh, don't say stupid
I'm gonna
shit
go,
like
yeah.
Dragons by 3. Don't do anything silly now.
Dragons by 1. I think. Do you know what, Leinster? Yeah, I think some of the gloss has come off. It's, and I just think.
What do you base that opinion on, Lee?
Fantasy. Me and just watching Disney films and all of that kind of stuff. Let's not deal with reality. Let's just deal with dancing pink elephants. No, I think at some point Dragons are going to start giving people bloody noses, and it won't be pretty. It won't be exciting. It won't be entertainment, but it'll be absolutely nail biting. Watching the telly, inches from the screen and shouting at it, and I think it'll be good. So yeah, I'm going to go Dragons by 1, just because.
Well, it's nice to dream, isn't it? Can you imagine the reaction of the rugby world and rugby Twitter would go absolutely nuclear if we went out?
We did it a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
it was great.
There was a game. It was a Sunday afternoon game. Dragons Leinster about 3-4 seasons ago, probably more in all honesty. And everyone had kind of like written it off. Oh, it's Leinster Dragons. No point watching it. And they were like 2 grannies doing their knitting in the stands and all of that kind of stuff. And 75 minutes in, Dragons were winning. Yeah. And Leinster did come back and I get 2 late tries.
It was 7-6. I remember that game. It was really turgid, but we did give him a good fight. But that was at Rodney Parade, not in the Aviva Stadium, which is going to be this weekend.
What I'm saying is stuff happens.
Get Josh Thomas on loan from Cardiff, right? That's your catalyst to winning. Get him to charge down a kick from Rothburn, and you win. That's how you do it.
It's simple as that, apparently.
Simple as that. Right, gents, we are going to start to wrap it up for this evening. But I have got one piece of news while we've been on air. So a regular listener to the show and family member, Ryan and Millie, have had a baby. So congratulations, Ryan. Baby Annie, born this evening. Well done, mate. Congrats.
Congratulations,
shall stand you a pint.
Expect you back on the pods this week.
So with that said, gents, it's going to be a cracking weekend of rugby again, and I wish you all the best. We shall come back next week. Dan, you're a 1 week wonder again, mate. I think Harley is back next week, but it's been a pleasure having you, and you are always welcome here. You know that, my friend. So
be back in 3 years.
Yeah. We'll keep the seat warm. Gents, enjoy your rugby. Have a good weekend. I'll see you next week.